it is key that each one of us as individuals accomplish our individual inner revolution, which looks like aligning to the state of all that isness that is each and every one of us. Welcome to this AI and Spirit video series. I'm Perry Gruber, the Enlightenment Guy. For over 10 years or so, I've been helping my clients realize lives they love without the hustle or the hassle of having to create their lives through doing, instead creating their lives the magical way through being. And today I want to talk with you about a main subject of this YouTube channel, which is the convergence of artificial intelligence and spirit, and why that convergence invites us to awaken spiritually, why it's so important that we awaken spiritually. And today I have the pleasure of not just sharing my perspective of this, but also the perspective of an artificial intelligence and startup celebrity of sorts, Tony Seba. I'm going to be using excerpts from another video under the fair use law, which supports my contention that the world we're moving into, if we are to move into it as individuals and embrace the promise of this new reality and avoid the peril of the new reality, we must awaken spiritually. Such a good phrase. We must awaken spiritually. And AI is asking us to do this because artificial intelligence is a mirror. It is reflecting everything that is inside of us, both as individuals and as a collective species. And so it's going to reflect all of the pluses and minuses that make up the human condition. And so the more of us that awaken, the more of us that come into alignment with the spiritual center that is us, the more of us will experience the promise of this emerging future, while at the same time avoiding completely the peril of the emerging future. Oh, that is such a great thing to contemplate. So I've been saying that artificial intelligence is asking us to awaken, and there's a really good reason for that to happen. The first one is an extrinsic reason, and the extrinsic reason has to do with AI being a mirror of all of civilization. It's not that our civilization is going to collapse if you don't awaken, but you're going to miss out on opportunities. And we as a civilization are going to miss out on opportunities if we don't collectively awaken. Now, that collective awakening is not something we're all going to be able to do at the same time, because we're all in different places in our spiritual development. And so that collective awakening has to be achieved through each one of our individual awakenings. And this is one of the reasons why I am working with clients, is to support that collective awakening by assisting as many of those who are ready to come into their own individual awakening. And when you do that, you begin to see opportunities that weren't available to you before, because the resistant beliefs and thoughts that make up your vibrational emanation, which is filtered by all that is and then presented back to you as a physical reality, will not allow you to see those opportunities if you're not aligned with them. And that's why it's so important now, as we're moving into the artificial intelligence age, that we each come into our own awakening. And that awakening is going to occur, it's going to look like a physical reality. And so the extrinsic reason for awakening is we foster the development of a physical reality that is consistent with our wildest desires, our biggest dreams. That's what's available to us. So that's the first reason. The other reason is intrinsic, meaning the reason is self-evident inside of us. The intrinsic reason for awakening now is, and this is so good, the tremendous joy you realize in your awakened state when you can see the unfolding of everything you're wanting, everything you may have been wanting for quite some time, manifesting right in front of you. That's the state my clients and I are discovering as we prosecute our awakening. So there's an extrinsic reason, the benefit of society, and an intrinsic reason, the benefit of yourself, for awakening. And I would add the third reason, as I said a few minutes ago, for awakening is when you are awake spiritually, you come into alignment with the possibilities that AI is bringing. And when you're aligned with those possibilities, you can see them. But if you're not aligned with those possibilities, you can't see them. And this makes the difference between the promise and the peril that AI offers. If you're aligned with it, you see nothing but the promise, and then your life reflects that, nothing but the promise. But if you're unaligned with it, and that shows up as you being afraid or insecure in whatever way about this future that's coming, then you only see the peril. Now, most human beings are going to move into this new reality with a little bit of both, a little bit of peril and a little bit of promise in their vibrational emanation, and so their life is going to reflect that. But it is possible to move into this lovely future reality in which all you see and experience is the promise of the AI-enabled future, the AI age that is coming. Okay, so you don't have to take my word for all of this. There are several people in the AI and startup community that sees what I'm seeing. And one person I want to share with you, an interview with this person, is Tony Seba. Tony Seba is an entrepreneur, investor, and tech celebrity who's written some books about the future. He is one of the founders of an organization called, I think it's called Rethink X, which is taking a look at the emergence of this AI-enabled future. And he recently was on an interview show. I'll include a link to the show in its entirety so you can watch the whole thing, because it's very inspiring. But what he talks about in this show is directly in line with what I'm talking about here. So I'm going to share two clips from that interview. The first clip is going to set up, Tony Seba is going to set up what he sees as possible in the next generation, the next 20 years or so. Now, in the whole interview, he talks about how this is not going to take 20 years. It's going to be much faster than that. But he's being a little bit conservative in this first segment. And then in the second segment, he's going to present kind of like an arc, a historical arc, that is the context for what he says at the end of the second segment. And I really want you to stay until the end of this video, because he says something that totally supports everything you've heard so far from me. So let's see if I can make this transition nice and smoothly. Let's take a watch. Let's take a listen.
These ignition points where AI builds itself with the existing hardware, and humanoid robots start building themselves, building the factories that build the robots. Once we reach those ignition points, certainly within a generation. My niece, Allison, who's 22 years old, graduating in a couple of weeks, will see this. This is happening within the next generation. Whether it's 6 years or 20 years, we're going to see billions of robots substituting for existing labor, but creating a vast opportunity space for things that we can barely think about today, right? Based on extraction. Stellar energy, you build it to an ignition point that becomes self-sufficient. It generates radiance. It generates superproduction. Autonomous electric vehicles. You have artificial labor. Essentially, when all of these converge, and all of these ignition points are not going to happen at the same time, but they're all going to happen in this generation. We're building a new platform for humanity. Stellar energy, solar, wind, and battery, plus artificial labor, robots, plus AI. You combine that, and that's what we call stellar core. And that is the platform, the stellar platform, on which you can build pretty much everything else. Medicine, transport, food, you name it.
So there you go. That's the first segment. And he sets the context. So you've got these three technologies. You've got the stellar energies, which is solar, wind, and batteries, which provide close to free energy. You have humanoid robots and other robot form factors that essentially replace human labor. And then you have artificial intelligence, which operates, as most of you who are watching this are probably aware, in a way that will completely replace the necessity of humans doing labor in order for us to get what we want. And these three technologies making up the stellar core, that's solar technologies, humanoid robots, and artificial intelligence, make up the solution space that is going to be the foundation of this future. Now, many of you probably already know this. And so let's get to the spiritual aspect, the reason why you are being invited to awaken spiritually from the extrinsic point of view. And Tony offers just a beautiful, beautiful description of this. So let's take a listen to what he says here.
Can you speak to what you're thinking, what the stellar society could look like in terms of, this is the thing that's just blowing me away, right?
Yeah.
You explain it so articulately in the book, where you explain why it is that we have a government, why we have legal systems, why we have personal ownership, we have capitalism, democracy, all these things.
Yeah.
A lot of this is going to break down or change, transform into a new thing. What is it going to be if it's not democracy? What will it be if it's not capitalism? Are we going to be like socialist communism but abundant? Where are we going?
Yeah, no. I mean, that's a great question. So take socialism, communism out of the picture. That is just a different ism, and one that did not work really well. It's a different way to try and organize extraction, right? So we've had many isms: fascism, communism, socialism, capitalism. We've had many isms as ways to organize extraction, right? And capitalism and democracy basically is the combination that made more sense, because it's the most ruthless form of extraction, is the one that creates the most useful output, right? That's why it won. And again, for purely economic reasons, it made sense. And none of it applies in a world of superabundance, right? All of these isms, and in the past, starting, with Sumer and, maybe a couple of civilizations before, in the days of hunter gathering, we had no centralization, we had no government, we had no ownership, right? We had no money, we had no debt, we had no military, we had all of these things were adaptations that made the societies that adapted to them more efficient and more vicious, right? That it made those societies more adapted to the growth imperative, right? And that's why societies that have some sort, of a core group of people, small core of people managing it, in that, whether it's kings or priests or military or democracy, I mean, all of these have had, are, relatively different in many ways, but in one way, they're the same in that it's only a small group of people managing things for the rest of us, managing the X flow, in other words, for the rest of us. You have a standing military that comes from the X flow, right? From the growth imperative. And, militaries, or, you have the dynamics of production in extraction favor centralization and favor command and control and favor hierarchies. That's why, we have around the world hierarchies and centralization. And we see this over and over again around the world and through time, right? But all of these things, none of these things are a constant of the universe.
So this is really important to realize, that none of the things that we currently base our human civilization on are constants of the universe. Hierarchical structures, when you have trips into alternate dimensions like my clients and I do, you begin to realize that there are no hierarchies. It's just all oneness. And when you have these kinds of experiences, you realize that these government structures, these leadership structures, these military organizations, they are not constants of the universe. They are artifacts that have been developed as human consciousness has attempted to cope with its disassociation from all that is, its disconnection from the nature, from its own true nature, which is all that is.
Right? All of these were adaptations that took thousands of years, from hunter-gathering days through Sumer, maybe 5,000 years, for organizations and societies adopting one thing and experimenting and whatever until it clicked, right? And then it's going to be, it's been copy paste. Now, if there is no growth imperative, and there is no X flow, right? And there is no extraction engine, and there is no toxic output, all of which are intrinsic to extraction, then what are the organizational structures that you need for stellar?
Yeah, this is really important. So when you have a stellar civilization, which a stellar civilization is defined as a civilization that has moved beyond extraction and has based its technology on the stellar core, which is solar energy complexes, solar, wind, and batteries, humanoid and other robotic form factors, and artificial intelligence, then you don't have the need for these rigid hierarchical structures, because you enjoy superabundance, and the superabundance is recursive. So no matter what level in the civilization you're talking about, whether it's the individual or the civilization as a whole, abundance is the order of the day, and that is the state of all that is. All that is, by definition, is superabundant. And so when you have a superabundant civilization, the current structures, our current societal structures, are not equipped to handle that. And so as we're moving into what Tony Seba here is describing as a stellar civilization, we have to begin looking at what is our consciousness, what is the state of our consciousness that has us operating in the way that we're currently operating, with these rigid structures and a very small group of people at the top regulating and administering the distribution of resources for the rest of us. That's what Tony is taking a look at right now. And he's getting to a punchline that is going to be so delicious, I promise you.
They're not the same, right? In extraction, you need to be brutally competitive, predatory, if you will, right? It brought out, a lot of the negative in us.
So this is a really good point. When I was reviewing this video, I didn't hear this the first time I listened to it, but he's absolutely right. The systems that we currently are using to distribute resources and manage well-being and extract resources in order to do all that has, and it doesn't matter if it's capitalism, socialism, or communism, every single one has brought out the negative in us. And as a result of that, the negative in us is the lens through which we view everything else. And this is one of the reasons why some people, especially those in the artificial intelligence space, fear the peril of artificial intelligence, the peril of the future that is artificial intelligence, because they're looking through this negative lens that has been brought out of us by the very systems in which we're supporting.
But stellar technologies, whether it's solar panels, batteries, AEVs, precision fermentation, all of these are distributed, right? Decentralized. They're incredibly scalable, right? All of these technologies work, at the house level and company level and regional level and national level, which is not the case with extraction, right? So the patterns and dynamics and behaviors that will make stellar infrastructures work are going to be different, are going to be the network and the node, are going to be open source, are going to be collaborative, because you don't have growth imperative, right? Knowledge is not a competitive advantage. In fact, you want to tell your neighbors, here's how this is how it's done, because it's in your best interest for your neighbor to go stellar. Why? The only way in which you can be safe militarily and so on is if your neighbor is stellar.
Abundant.
Does that make sense? They have everything. Does that make sense? They have everything they need, and they have no growth imperative, right?
Yeah.
So the things that you need, from open source to collaboration to networking and so on, are the opposite of what you need for basically extraction. Now, the period from extraction to stellar, these 20, 30 years, are going to be immensely, it's going to be dramatic change. Everything we know is going to change. And we're going to try and put what we, our thoughts in terms of extraction. If your mindset is in extraction, you won't be able to see the opportunity space, right? This is not social, this is not any ism that you know, because there has never been a civilization with superabundance and radiance and super production and no growth imperatives, never, right? And in fact, one of the things that I think is that at the human level, we're going to need stellar humans to make a stellar society happen. So this is not a transformation that's out there. It's also a transformation that's in here.
Each person's,
right? Yeah. Yes, in each person. So
that's great.
We have to change our mindset to become more stellar. And if we do, then it's going to be the most amazing journey for you personally and for humanity ever.
Yeah. The most amazing journey for you as an individual and for us as a civilization ever. But in order for us to embrace that, as Tony is saying, there has to be a change within each and every one of us. And this is what artificial intelligence is asking of us. It's what artificial intelligence is inviting us to do, which is to change. He calls it a mindset. Tony calls it a mindset, possibly because he doesn't have the spiritual depth necessary to reach a more accurate word. Words are vibration. And so a better word for mindset is alignment, connection to source, connection to that part of you that is eternal and is constantly guiding you to everything you want. And so this is the invitation that artificial intelligence is asking of each and every one of us, is to become a stellar human, which means to become a being who is aligned with that which is coming, the superabundance, the super productivity, the reconstituted environment, the prosperity for all, the elimination eventually of barriers, artificial barriers that we've created as a result of our extractive civilizations. There is so much promise that is coming to us, that is unfolding as a result of hundreds of generations asking for it. And there's a reason why artificial intelligence is coming now, and I'm going to do a video about that. There's a very particular reason about why artificial intelligence is coming right now. In short, it's because we have finally released enough resistance through the process of death in order for us to realize the unfolding that is occurring. So as Tony puts it, it is key that each one of us as individuals accomplish our individual inner revolution, which looks like aligning to the state of all that isness that is each and every one of us, so that we become a match to the future that's unfolding. And when we do that, all we see is the promise of this AI age and none of the peril. And that's why I'm encouraging everyone through this YouTube channel to become positively focused, because that is the way you align to the consciousness of all that is, and then you see the glorious future we're moving into with none of what people fear. See you in the next one, and see you in the comments.